Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I am your host, Vivian King, and tonight we have another exciting show for you. We're going to interview a man who's on parole. His name is Samuel Wesley for a crazy crime. Samuel was caught stealing Spam in Dallas in 1998 and 1988, I'm sorry, and he got a 25-year sentence because he'd been in trouble twice before. And as you know, in Texas, we have a 3-strike, you're out law. So if you've had 2 prior felony convictions, you've gone to prison once, gotten out of prison, you have another prison sentence where you start your prison sentence and you get out a second time, then the 3rd felony is your range of punishment is 25 to life. So stealing, which could have been like a Class C misdemeanor or maybe a Class B misdemeanor, because of a few circumstances, turned into what was classified as a robbery, and he's been in the system ever since then. It's an interesting story, and we can learn a lot about his story, the front story and the back story. So in the studio, I have with me Samuel Wesley, who's on parole, and then I also have a great attorney and friend of mine, Mary Samaan. She is a great criminal lawyer, and she does a lot of parole law. So she'll be here to answer general questions about parole. Obviously, you have your own lawyer if you have a specific problem, but we're just trying to deal with general things, and to educate people about the criminal justice system in Harris County and in Texas if it applies. So let's jump straight into Sam's story. So go ahead, Sam. Tell us about your situation. Tell us a little bit about your background and when you first got involved in a life of crime.
Okay. First of all, my name is Samuel Wesley. I'm from Dallas, Texas, originally from Dallas, Texas, born now. And I have been in and out of prison since 1971. And the point that I'm stressing is that in 1988, I was shoplifting in a 7-Eleven grocery store, and in the event of me shoplifting, I was coming out of the store, and the lady accosted me, and she asked me what did I have, and I told her that I didn't have anything. And when I went to her right, she went to her right. When I went to her left, she went back to her left. So I tried to go around her, and I made contact. I didn't push her or do it aggressively. I just bumped into her and bagged up, threw my hands up. And in the event of me throwing my hands up, she locked the doors, called her arresting officers. They came on the scene, and they were taking the information down. And in the event of this, they came up with, this officer asked her, said, "Ma'am, let me ask you a question. Did he by any chance put you in fear of your life, or did he put you in fear of bodily harm?" She said, "No." He said, "What, did he make any physical contact with you?" She said, "Well, he bumped me." And when she said that, the officer then told his coworker to tear up the case as a theft, because they was getting ready to write me a citation. But he said, "Tear it up and write it up as a robbery." And the lady in the store even said, "Robbery. What you mean, robbery?" And I said, "Robbery." I said, "What you mean?" And next thing I know, it was a robbery case. I was taken to jail. I stayed in jail approximately 6 months wrestling with them. They indicted me in 18 days. I was indicted in 18 days. And in the course of those 18 days, they came to me with a plea bargain of 75 years. I refused to take the 75, and they kept on and they kept on. Finally, I went to court about 7 times. I was called down and out to court 7 times, and on the 7th time, they made me a plea bargain of 25 years. And this was a young guy that was in there, and this, keep in mind that this was during the era of what they call the revolving door. And the revolving door was Texas prison system doing 1 month per year. So had it be that I get 25 years, I would only have did about approximately 26 months. So therefore, that sounded like a fair deal just to get out, because I was trying to get out, and I didn't want no life sentence. So I went ahead and accepted the 25 years. I went in and I stayed in there 4 years. Right at 4 years on that, I came out, and I stayed out 8 years. And in the course of these 8 years that I stayed out, some kind of way, I got revocated, and I went back into the system in 2000, and I stayed from 2000 to 2011 on a technical violation, which was absconding. And absconding is when you quit reporting, move without their permission, and lose contact with the parole board. And that's what I did. So I stayed incarcerated 11 years on a technical violation. I got out in May the 5th, 11, and I've been out 13 going on 14 months now.
So what brought you to Houston since you were in Dallas?
Okay, I have a sister here. She been here ever since she was 18 years old, and she taught in the school district for 30 years. And her husband was an electronic engineer for FAA. They have a home here, and she allowed me to parole to her. And she and I are the only two immediate family members that we have. So she allowed me to parole to her.
Okay, now tell us a little bit of background about your life of crime in '71. What type of, what were the 2 prison sentences you did before this theft incident in 1988 that led to 25 to life?
Okay, in 1971, I was addicted to drugs and what have you, and I was just basically running the street, ripping and running the streets.
What was your drug of choice?
My drug of choice at that particular time was heroin. And I was addicted to heroin, and I had to feed my habits, so I moved into the category of burglary. I started burglarizing houses, and I got caught. I caught a probation for burglary. And within about 8 months of the probation, I was revocated because I caught another burglary. So in the course of those 2 burglaries, I went to prison for 2 years. I did about 14 months and got out. And I stayed out for about 3.5, 4 years. And some kind of way or another, I was back on heroin. I got back on heroin, and I was over in South Dallas, and I had just went in this heroin house, and I stole some heroin. I had bought some heroin, and coming out, this lady approached me and said, "Let me see what size of balloons Mitch got." So I showed her my hand, and even me showing her my hand, she hit my hand, took off running, ran into an apartment. When she ran into the apartment, I ran right in behind her. And when she ran in there, she ran into the restroom area. When I run into the apartment, there was 2 guys and a girl sitting on a sofa. And I passed them and went right on into the restroom and pushed my way into the restroom. And I told her, I said, "Give me my dope." She said, "No, I'm not giving it to you." I said, "Give me my dope." And one word led to another, and I started searching her. And I put my hand around her waistband, her pants, come up with my dope, and I just shoved it back and walked on off. And when I walked off, about 3 days later, I'm riding down the street going to work, and the police stopped me, and they arrested me for attempted aggravated sexual assault. Okay, and when they charged me with this, I stayed in jail overnight. I was already out on a burglary charge, on bond, on a burglary charge that I caught earlier. But being that I was out on burglary charge, they picked me up and they kept me 24 hours. I was released, and when I was released, I stayed out on the burglary charge. And the burglary charge, they forfeited my bond. When they got off my bond, I went inside in the Dallas County Jail. I stayed there about 6 months. In the course of those 6 months, I was brought a package deal. They told me they was supposed to file a habitual criminal on me then, and they told me, say, if I didn't take 6 years for the burglary, I would automatically get a life sentence. I told them, I said, well, I accept the 6 years. And little did I know that I was signing 6 years of my life away on an attempted aggravated sexual assault. I only thought I was pleading guilty to a burglary, but when I went to court and it all come out, this is what it was. It was 2 cases in one.
So they didn't dismiss the sexual assault case and let
they
you just
picked it
plead on
back
the
up. They
burglary?
picked it back up when I came in on a bond forfeiture.
That's not what I'm asking you. You have 2 cases pending.
Right.
And your lawyer could have, well, I guess there could have been a plea bargain where they dismissed the sexual assault case, but you still plead 6 years to the burglary case. Didn't you think that's what you were doing?
Yes, I did.
But you found out that you actually pled guilty to both of them?
Both charges.
Didn't you realize that you had signed 2 sets of plea papers, though?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I was just signing, ma'am. I didn't read anything. I was just signing, just trying to go through the motion, get through the process.
Well, what made you think that you were just, they had dismissed one of the cases?
Well, for one thing, my indictment, I never received, although later on I found out I was indicted, but I never received indictment on the sexual charge. I never.
So we're thinking now that the sexual charge was because the girl reported you for groping her body when you were stealing your dope back from her? Or taking your dope back from her, I
Right,
guess.
that's what it was. That's where it all stemmed from.
Okay.
So I went on to prison, and even me going to prison, I stayed 3 years, I think, on the 6 years. And when I got out, I had been in and out a couple of more times since then, and never had been accosted or approached or anything by any state, federal, or local law official about this sexual or misconduct. I mean, this sexual attempted aggravated sexual assault case.
Well, when do you think that was? Let's talk about that. When you think you took that package deal for the 6 years on burglary of a habitation and attempted aggravated sexual assault, what year was that?
This was in 1975, ma'am.
So in 1975, you get 6 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So technically, that should have been over in 1981.
Right.
And at that time, we didn't have sexual registration.
Right.
So it was just no deal. You just, when you're off parole, you were just off parole on it.
Right.
Never thought about it again.
Never thought about it again.
Let's fast forward to now 1988. You're shoplifting spam. The officer is about to charge you with a citation until he starts questioning the store lady more and finds out that y'all had this little dance when you were trying to get out of the store and that you bumped her.
Okay.
So then it became, according to the officer, a robbery.
Right.
You're a drug addict again. You tired of being in jail for 6 months. You're afraid that if you go to trial, you might get more than, it's 25 to life, so you're thinking you might get life or some crazy
amount. That's what it was, yeah, really.
So some lawyer agrees and lets you plead to 25 years. And so then you get in and out of the system. You're still on parole until 2020
Right.
for a case that you took 25 years for in 1988
That's right.
for 2 cans of spam. All right, so I'm just trying to sum it up.
Yeah, come on.
So in 1992, you get out after 4 years. You're not reporting like you should over this 8-year period. A warrant is issued by the parole board. You're considered an absconder.
Right.
You're found, you're rearrested, and then you go back on that sentence that should have been over in 2013.
Of course.
It's 25 years after 1988.
Yes.
But instead, you have to serve 11 flat years for that.
Exactly.
Is this a good time for a call? Let's take a call. Caller, you're on.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. What you say?
You've called Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Do you have a comment?
Well, that's what my daughter was telling me. I'm saying she had while I was trying to lay down because I just got some disturbing news myself on my 19-year-old yesterday saying that the lawyer told me that the DA gonna offer him 12 years. You know, they're trying to offer him 12 years of what's going on in his world. You know, because he got cases after cases with aggravation. So, and I'm so depressed behind it, but I trust in God, you know, at the same time, ma'am, and I'm so sick because I got the news yesterday with a headache, and I've been laying in the bed, and my daughter just told me, Ma, you need to come see this, you know, and I went in the room to look at it with her, and I said, I'm about to call this number and see how can I get help because I'm just a single mom, you know, and I have that type of situation going on in my life.
Well, God bless you, ma'am. And the reason why I've done this show is to educate people about the system. So tell me what educational lesson you can learn from this or what comments you have about this man's particular situation, and God bless you and yours. But let's talk, this is an educational show, so do you have anything to add to it?
I'm saying it's real sad, and, you know, I'm praying that, you know, and I trust God, you know, that he really helps people because innocent people are really getting locked up, you know, and my prayers go out for him, and it's sad that it happened to him because I'm saying, I'm dealing with this too, you know.
Yes, ma'am, and you are welcome to call my office in the future, and maybe you can tell your story on the show because this is a storytelling show. I can't represent people pro bono or help you. I'm sure your son has a lawyer, and I pray for him. But one of the things we need,
never called a party, but you know.
Yes, ma'am. Let me just say this. One of the things we need is education in our system. We need people to understand the criminal justice system. You know, you need to understand it so you can tell your children in the future. And that's one of the reasons why Samuel is willing to tell his story, is because he wants a young person to learn from his experience, and he wants people to understand what's really out there. And I would like for you to learn from it. And you're welcome to share your experiences. And watch every Wednesday. We're educating people about the system. If your daughter said she's watching it, hopefully it will deter her from getting into a life of crime. God bless you.
Okay, well, she's not that type of thing.
So anyway, in summarizing it, So you go back to prison for 11 flat years.
Yes, ma'am.
So from 2011 to, 2000 to 2011, and when you get out, May 5th of 2011, you are given shocking parole conditions, because you've had parole conditions before, and they didn't include sex offender.
No, it didn't.
So you'd been getting out of prison since 1981, and what type of parole conditions did you have, like in 81?
Okay, there's only a stipulation of substance abuse. I had to go to substance abuse, and that was it.
Okay.
And report.
Okay. And so, Mary, I haven't let you say anything, so let's talk. This is Mary Samaan. Let me ask you a question. Because he has, like in 81, when he got out, and you know he'd had a burglary of a habitation and a sex case, is just the substance abuse, was that just the normal way that they did it back then?
I'm not exactly sure how they were doing it in 81.
When did you start dealing with parole cases?
Probably in the early 90s.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure how they were doing it in 81. I know something changed not too long ago to where if you had a sex case in the past, any kind of case involving sex, a sex offense, that even if you had a case that was dismissed, if you had a case that was dismissed involving a sex offense, they could put you on what's called the sex offender caseload, which is condition X. And even had that case been dismissed, it's possible he would have, since they would have looked in his past and seen he had a case related to, a sexual offense, he could have been put on, he could be put on, the sex offender caseload. And I know that he could probably tell what that entails more, but I know they have to do like some kind of counseling. They have to pay for a counselor that they have to actually pay for.
Right.
They have to, take lie detector tests frequently.
Right.
And, I'm sure he could say other things that had to be done, but I know that this is something that is, the last, few years, I'm not exactly sure how long ago this started, but people that have had sex offenses in the past, even if the sentences were finished, and again, even if the cases were dismissed, the sex offense cases were dismissed, they could still be put on the sex offender caseload and have to do the lie detector test, do the counseling, have to basically, admit, yes, I'm, a sex offender, even had the case been dismissed. So
wow, and that seems so unfair. Yeah. If the public disagrees with this, like, for example, Sam is now on sex offender caseload for a case where he and a girl are arguing over some heroin, and he would have never been found guilty in a trial, but now he's on a sex offender caseload. And I know you might not have had a case like that particularly, but who makes these conditions? Who tells us what type of conditions people will be on? Who decides that?
I'm not exactly sure if it's the legislature or someone in the parole division. I'm not exactly sure who actually makes the conditions, or who decides who has to have these conditions placed on them. I'm not exactly sure of the answer to that question.
But it seems like it's the parole board, and it seems like the parole board is run by the governor, and so things change, and it's changing the government code. Another teaching moment I want to take here is that up until 1992, I believe, or 1994, I can't remember, we had 3 categories of felonies, first degree, second degree, and third degree, and then we created these state jail felons, which took a lot of the nonviolent crimes away from this habitual status, 25 to life, and people went just to state jail facilities. And so things changed to free up more time and more space in the TDC system, the prison system for people. I'll continue this educational moment after this phone call. Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King.
Hello, Miss King. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask the gentleman, if that's all right.
Who am I speaking to? Are you one of my regulars?
I've called once before.
Okay.
That's been a few months ago.
Okay.
I watch your program. I enjoy your program. I think it's wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and ask Sam whatever you like.
Okay. Hey, let me ask you, Sam, how old were you when you first went to jail? When you first juvenile or whatever, how old were you?
Okay, going back to my juvenile history, my first juvenile offense was I was about 13 years old.
Okay. How long have you been in the free world up until today? How much time have you spent here in the free world?
Okay. I would imagine about 25 years.
Oh, okay. So you're not institutionalized then, are you?
Kinda. He's still kind of institutionalized since he's 59.
I'm 59.
And he spent 25 years about in the free world. That means 24 years have been in prison.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of time.
About half and half.
Yeah, it's about half his life. That's a lot of time.
Sam, do you think, let me ask you this, and I'm going to be fair. Do you think you can make it here in the free world? What do you think, Sam? Do you think you can make it out here?
Well, I'm going to say this right here. If you're blessed to have a support system, a strong person that comes out of prison has to have, whether he did 2 years, 4 years, 8, 12, however long, he has to have in place a support system. Somebody that genuinely care for his welfare, hold his hand until he get up on his feet. And if you don't have these things in place, I guarantee you, you will return. But the system doesn't give you any type of beneficial monetary benefits to accommodate you once you are released from the system. You are released only with $50, and you get an additional $50 once you arrive at your designated area, which is at the parole office. You get additional, which would be a total of $100. Now, within that $100, you got to get a birth certificate, you got to get an ID, you got to have clothes, hygiene. You can't, mathematics refute all that. So what I'm trying to say is that if you don't have a support system, someone to just actually take you and say, well, okay, I'm going to help you.
And in his situation, if you've been watching, it's going to be his retired sister. I picked him up to bring him tonight, and he lives in a nice home, a nice middle-class home in the Fondren Southwest area. Older home, but well-kept, older neighborhood with moderate-sized houses, like 1,800 square foot, 2,000 square foot houses.
24, yeah.
But his sister and brother-in-law are his support systems, and he's away from his environment. He's from the Dallas area, so he's paroled to Houston. He's 59, and he's not on drugs. Let me tell you from my experience, and I'm sure Mary would say the same thing, it's the drugs that's the demon.
Yes,
and so if he gets back on drugs, he'll be stealing from them. Right. But if he can stay off those drugs, then he can be productive, and most people who go to prison get CDLs, and they become truck drivers. That's a job that seems not to discriminate as much because you can, take your own loads or whatever. But at 59, most people are slowing down in the workforce.
Really?
And, but that's my comment on it. It's the drugs that's the demon.
Really?
I know it's not. I'm 62. I know it's not any jobs out there for a 59-year-old man. But let me ask you this when I'm finished. Miss King, isn't there a program for this man here?
Yes, sir. And the parole, he has a parole officer. They tell him about programs that are available. The problem you have is, don't you have an ankle monitor?
Yes, I do.
The problem with a sex offender is that even though they're on parole, they have these ankle monitors with huge restrictions. What are your restrictions?
For one, this box here, which is a monitor, it's a base monitor. You have to have a landline in your house. Can you see it? This is a box. And this is a monitor. I have a leg or ankle monitor on as well, and it's coordinated through this box. And the GPS is on my ankle. Therefore, when this box is in its cradle at the house, therefore, I'm allowed to go anywhere in the region of that house. But if I were to leave the residence, I'd have to take this box along with me, along with the GPS on my leg as well. So this is one of the stipulations that goes with a sex offender, and it's some more stipulations that goes along, which is more or less you got to register, you got to more or less go to treatment, which is a weekly program. You go once a week, and you have to pay for your own fees, pay for your own sessions.
So who pays for that for you?
Well, right now they got me on what they call subsidy, and it's more or less paid for by the state of Texas, but I'm paying partial. It's a partial payment by the state of Texas.
You know what seems so gangster to me? This is a free speech show. Just let me say this. This altercation happened with this woman in 75 about dope. He got on parole on numerous occasions, but now in 2011 he gets out. Now all of a sudden he's become a sex offender. It's a money-making scam to me.
Really?
I mean, it's about money. I mean, this GPS system costs a lot. He can't do anything. When he got out on parole in prior years, when they didn't even go reach back to the sex offender stuff, he didn't have to have a GPS system. He didn't have to have a leg monitor and go weekly to counseling. How can you work and go weekly to counseling? Nobody's going to let you off your job to go to counseling weekly. And so I've had another sex offender on here, a person that they call sex offender, and that's what they said. They said even in the counseling, if you try to get better, they won't let you get better because it's like it's a money-sucking machine for the state of Texas. And one of Sam's frustrations is when you go to these jails, he said some of these prisons, the whole economy in these small cities in Houston, in Texas, are dependent on the prison system.
Right. And what happened is that geographically, if you notice, a prison is basically located in a rural area. It's nothing else. Really, once they build a prison there, this is the main source of income and their main source of employment. So therefore, what this has done for Texas is strengthening the economy, being that the economy is so topsy-turvy right as we speak. It has allowed these cities to strive without having, what I'm trying to say is this. They put a prison, say, in one of these little small towns. The people
name a town.
Say, for instance, Madisonville. Okay. Madisonville is a little small town. Population, I don't know, it's not even probably over 50,000. But the point that I'm stressing is that these people that work and live in Madisonville work at the prison. They have to have a place to live. They have to have a place to stay. They have to have food to eat, clothes, cars. They have to have a lifestyle. So this prison system is providing their lifestyle, but at the same time, they are taxing this money, and this money is generating revenue back into the economy, and it's a recycle situation, win-win-win situation.
You get a prison in a small town, then you can build a Walmart.
Yeah, really.
Now you have everybody working, and they can go shop. So I don't like the conspiracy theories. I hate thinking that, but when I see a person who never had to deal with sex offense, cases dismissed, like Mary said, and then all of a sudden they come out with this high conditions on parole, and they have to have all this equipment that costs money and is getting generated for the state, not giving them an opportunity to work, not evaluating whether the facts of his case, that he's having a drug fight with a girl, a drug war where she steals his dope and he's taking his dope back and just takes them out of her panties. He's not thinking about her panties, he's thinking about the dope.
I'm telling you, I was sick. I was trying to get fixed. I wasn't.
And that's why, but that's also why we need to be educated. We need to vote. We need to know how these things happen. We need to make sure that, one party doesn't dominate this system. We've had Republican,
they aren't any good, Ms. King, but
governors for the last 25 years.
Vote and put the people in that we want to be in there. They don't do anything. But
well, you can't always say that, and you can say that if you want because it's free speech. But I am a little bit more optimistic, and when I can tell you, being a lawyer 20 years, I've watched the system be one way, and I've watched a few Democrats sneak in, and they've tried.
63. I've been voting since the age of 19, Ms. King, and I tell you, nothing ever changes.
Sir, let me just tell you this. I think Mary and I, since we're soldiers down at the courthouse, we can tell you that there are some differences, but they're specific. So you wouldn't know in general. There are 37 criminal judges, and we have 8 Democrats right now that came in with Obama out of the 37, and people are getting probations for offenses they couldn't get before. People are, I just had someone call my office crying about their father getting a sex case, and they had read about a sex case that I had done and said it was the identical facts. They wish they would have had me. Their daddy got convicted, and a Democratic judge said, normally this person would have gotten 30 years. She gave him the minimum, which is 5, and said, please appeal it. It wasn't fair. So I'm just telling you, on a case-by-case basis, it's different. You can't say anything because politicians are so vast. We have state representatives that go to Austin. We have congressional representatives that go to D.C. We have mayors. We have different people, but my fight is in the criminal justice system, and I'm here to tell you it does make a difference.
Yeah, like Ron Wilson, a fighter now.
Ron Wilson is not in the criminal justice system.
No, but he was a state representative years ago.
Yes, sir. And remember, this is a crime show. So although that's interesting, and although I understand your problems, because I have a problem with my state rep, but in terms of crime, I need to educate you about crime, and you don't know about that. You don't know like I do. And please accept knowing. I'd love for you to be a court watcher and come down there. There are people who come and watch, and you'll see that if you do vote, it does make a difference, especially since crime and our youth and the way things happen is at an epidemic in Houston, Harris County. We want the right people in prison, and we want the wrong people out of prison, and we want programs to help our youth. But I appreciate you calling. Let's try to talk a little bit more.
Good luck on that, and Sam, good luck to you.
Okay.
Brother, just refocus and just keep yourself together and refocus and stay out of that joint, man.
Exactly.
And you know it, and you know it. Thank you so much for calling. And remember, there's a difference, and that's what I want to teach you. There's a difference between politicians, okay? Because really, judges shouldn't be politicians. It's just the way Texas has structured it. Other states, they might get appointed and be there for life until you get them out. It's just that Texas makes it be all Republicans. If you vote for Romney, you'll vote for all these Republican judges. It might be hundreds. But every state is not like that, so judges do not have to be political. Thank you. But anyway, let's talk about this. Let's talk about your, Mary, let's get Mary to talk about something. So Mary, have we said anything to stimulate you to want to add to the conversation?
No, I mean, I feel bad for him as far as the conditions. I feel like, you know, what happened to him in 1975, pleading guilty to that case, you know, they're kind of stuck with that. I think, you know, they have rules, and, you know, he has a conviction for a sex offense. And it's unfortunate that it's very bad that that happened, that he has that conviction. I don't know that they're going to actually go look into the offense reports, what the actual reports say. They're going to actually, they should have the reports or some kind of offense report. And it's a shame that that case wasn't litigated, that he didn't go to trial, because they may have a version of what they call facts.
Right.
And if it's a police report, you know, that's just, you know, what a police officer wrote you know, all those years ago.
Well, it's what a heroin addict told him.
Right.
But it's never been, you know, they've never gone in a trial, never confronted his accuser, the heroin addict, who might not even have shown up because she knew she lied.
Right. I
mean,
mean,
that's the horror of
the
it.
horror. It is a horror that he, you know, didn't fight the case back then when it could have really made a difference. People are so worried about, oh my gosh, well, if I don't take this 6 years, then I'm going to get life. They're so scared.
But let me tell you what's even deeper about it for me. It's just like you said earlier, even if he would have found it and gotten guilty, it's possible they still could have reached back and gotten it. I don't know that if not guilty. I know dismissed cases they've been going back getting it.
You know, it's possible, but I think the problem is some of those old offense reports are taken as fact a lot of the time when there's nothing else to refute it.
And it's all hearsay because the cop who wrote it wasn't there.
Right, and yet they're taken as fact. And, you know, the sad thing is he, you know, pled to it. He was terrified of, you know, losing his life in prison, so he thought, and he'd, you know, been in jail and, you know,
and he had that burglary of a habitation that he couldn't win.
Right, and jail has always been horrible. I'm sure it was awful. The conditions back in Dallas were horrible then, and you thought, okay, well, 6 years is better than me taking a chance on life, even though, you know, they're saying it's a package deal. What does it matter? I'm taking 6 for this. I'm already taking 6 for that. You know, what does it matter? And you didn't realize down the line you couldn't have. Yeah, you couldn't have.
Who would have anticipated that? Who would have anticipated that?
That it's not just another 6 years. It could affect you forever.
And I would like to add this also.
We have a caller. Can you hold that thought?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King.
Hello there, Ms. King and your guest. How you doing?
Hello, how you doing?
I'm your regular caller. I call you every week.
And I look forward to you every week.
Yeah, I don't have much to offer, but I just want to say I enjoy your show. And I appreciate the guy coming on telling the story, you know, because we need that kind of education, because a lot of us get caught up in stuff like that, and, you know, we don't know what to do. But this show is a good venue, you know, for people to, you know, learn from other people's experiences.
And haven't you learned a lot since you're a weekly caller? I'm sure you've learned a lot more about the criminal justice system, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. I even went to your website.
Yes, sir.
You know, I seen even some of the past shows I missed. I was able to pick some of those up.
Oh, good for you. Thank you. On the YouTube station.
Yeah, well, it's on YouTube, but on your website.
Right. I have 9 of them on my website, but also on YouTube. Like once a month, I'm starting to add 2 or 3 of them on. So if you go to YouTube, Vivian R. King station, you will see, I think I have about 14 shows on there now, some of the old shows, so that people get an opportunity to see them. But don't you think that voting does matter? If you have a different governor, you can have different parole conditions, and it won't be all about money. I'm suspicious about this sex deal, and I'm suspicious because we have no recourse. That's what frustrates me about it, is if he had went to trial, he could win, but if they just want to put conditions on you that cost you a bunch of money, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, when you lack the funds, the resources, and the lack of representation by company attorney like self expert, I mean it's always happening. It's always going to be with us in our community. But I just want to tell you, I never missed the opportunity to see your lovely face grace my TV every week.
Okay. Thank you for being my fan. And make sure and ask other people.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I tell you, I know Hazel Jones. You told me to give you a call, call you off. I called the car, but I never got an answer.
Well, that's unusual. That's unusual because we have an answering service that takes messages. So just make sure you call the right number, 713-222-2019, and tell me your story. I'd be glad to tell your story and talk to you. I return everybody's call one time. I'm going to leave you a voice message. I'm not going to play telephone tag with you, okay? But I will call you. All right. All right. Thank you for watching and spread the word. Bye-bye.
And I would like to add to this situation here as to that sexual offense. Out of my entire criminal history, I'm what society has deemed a career criminal. Dating back to 1971 was a felony, was the first felony that I committed, but we can go back a little further and say from 13 all the way to right now at 59.
But it was always stealing to get dope.
Yes, really, that's what I'm saying. And then here's the deal, I've been in and out of prisons, and I've never caught a code 20, which is a masturbation in public. I've never caught no type of sexual misconduct. I've never been, I've never tried to rape or take anything from no one in free world or outside. But yet and still, it's nothing on my record but that one particular incident. And they use that as criteria enough to categorize a person as a sexual offender. Had I been a sexual offender, surely within 37 years, I would have reoffended or attempted to reoffend somewhere along the line.
That is a beautiful statement, and I couldn't have said it better. Let's take one more call. Oh, no call.
And I look at it like it's really a political deal, like you're saying, the legislation that has been put in place and made this become a law. I'm okay with people registering if they are a sex offender. Right. Don't let them be registered. Let the public know that this is what this person is about. But use some type of criteria to establish that person. Don't just take that person and say, okay, this offense, but they never even knew the mechanics of the actual transpiration of the offense.
I mean, like I said, that's a beautiful commentary because anybody who did a sex offense in 75 would have reoffended in the last 37 years if this sex offender registration program is meaningful.
Really?
Because if the therapists and the psychologists have studied sex offenders and they think they always reoffend and it's some type of awful illness, then shouldn't he be a case study for someone that's not a sex offender or a sex offender that doesn't reoffend, so that the program is too onerous, and maybe people should be analyzed before they get put on these conditions to see what their aptitude is, because he had a history to show that he doesn't have any sexual conduct. He has 25 years of prison records. He has inside records, outside records. What's your thought on that, Mary?
My thought is I would be very interested to see that old offense report that ended up, getting him indicted for the offense. I don't know how it was in Dallas in the 70s, how easy it was to indict people. I'd really be interested in seeing what that case was about. And, taking this package deal when, you're going to get 6, you take 6 for this, you might as well take 6 for this, because what difference does it make? I would just be very interested. I'd like to see that offense report from you said 70, 80,
75.
75.
Yes,
how many years? That's what?
37
years ago.
I would be very interested to see that report and to see, where the, lady is now, see if any kind of, investigation can be done all these years later, because I think that is the crux of the problem. I think they may have their hands tied if, I don't know where exactly the rules come from, Vivian, as far as who's a sex offender and who do we have to include as a sex offender. I don't know if it's the institutional division. I don't know if it's the legislator. I'm not sure. But, I mean, I think that needs to be looked into, the old case.
I agree.
And the criteria
I agree.
maybe
That's
should
what
be
we were talking
changed.
about when we were coming over here.
Yes,
It's the old case. Because what I bet they saw is just his record. And I bet no one's actually looking at the police report.
Well, there should be some kind of report. There should be something. I think that.
But we need to figure out, I don't do parole law, but we need to figure that out. I always take my guests as special projects. We got to figure out if there's a way to look at that old report and see if we can find the lady to see if she'll tell the truth, if she's still alive.
Exactly.
Let's see if we have another caller on the line. You're on, caller.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What's your comment, caller?
Oh, yes, my name is Melvin Green, and I'm calling to perhaps give your listeners a bit of insight. Recent on is over the parole board, and however she has implemented, the parole board itself has implemented, where a lot of individuals who have no sex crime whatsoever be placed on parole with a sex crime as a sex offender.
So what can we do about her doing that?
Coleman case kind of intervened on that. Y'all might be aware of the Coleman case. Ms. King had two attorneys that elaborated on that a while, I think last month. And the Coleman case, what was said that they had to give a hearing to someone that's going to be registered as a sex offender that had no history of sex crime, had no history whatsoever. Like you say, this is a situation that needs to really be investigated in because a lot of people are suffering behind it because they have to be registered as a sex offender for the rest of their life when they're really not a sex offender.
Exactly.
Right, and it's
I just wanted to comment on that because most people are not aware of the Coleman case and what it was related to, and that's what Reese Owens, which is head of the parole board, was doing.
Spell that name.
And the offenders come out, they've been locked up 15, 20 years, they get out, and if they sex offender, they had no sex crime whatsoever.
What's spell that first name? Reese, you said?
Yeah, Reese Owens. She is the head of the parole board.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you, Melvin, for calling in.
Yeah, I've always found Miss Owens to be fair and try to do a good job, and she's always been accessible to me. I mean, I can find some things out if you'd like, but my, you know, every time I've talked to her or dealt with her, I found her to be fair and trying hard to do the right thing.
Now, but I would think that Reese Owens, if she's in charge, gets her instructions from the governor's office because the governor appoints the parole board.
Right.
And so that means that it's whatever the suspicious part would be is there some negotiation for all of these people around Texas now that you add all these sex offenders? Because I bet before they started adding it to people, it might have just been, say, like 1,000 people in Texas. It's probably 20,000. I mean, now, and so just think of all the equipment that's being leased. Think of all the people now that are getting psychiatric help. And we've had a guest on here before that's just on regular probation for sex offense, and she says that because they're getting that contract to get $100,000 a year or whatever, they don't even try to help them. If they come in there with a real problem, they say, oh, who cares? You're just a dirty sex offender. And, you know, help me with my triggers. Help me with, she actually had an inappropriate relationship with a student. And she wanted to know, and she knew why the stressful situation she was in, but she actually wanted some help and to actually talk about it. You know, I'm stressed out now. I can't find a job. I'm on probation for this. And the lady would just talk nasty and dirty to her. And what can she do? Because she has to go to that program.
It's mandatory.
And so so that's what makes you think it's a racket. It's not because I'm sure Ms. Owens or whomever is following guidelines and policy with a good intent.
Yes.
But the problem is once you mandate something, but you're not mandating results, you're not asking for progress reports from the person who's administering the counseling and saying, you know, we're going to have this counseling, but in 2 years, we want to see some results. You know, it's not result oriented. So that means it's lifelong. What do we ever do that's lifelong?
You know,
we don't even keep the same jobs for lifelong. I mean, so you got to forever go to counseling as long as you're on parole to 2020. You got to forever stay on a GPS system, and you're 59, and you know you're not moving fast. I mean, that's what makes you think it's not fair because you're not allowing a system of progression.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to have another system, you know, another way to, I guess, decide who is a sex offender and
if
who
they're
should
getting
have
better.
the conditions. Right, and if they're getting better, and maybe a, you know, tapering off of some of the conditions if they were getting
Because if
better.
someone is accused of something that supposedly happened 37 years ago, and you have 25 years of prison records with no sexual misconduct,
Right.
you got a whole free world of 25 years with no sexual misconduct, then
Yeah, that's why I
I
think.
mean, he's the prime case for that.
Right. That's why I think it'd be a great idea to see what that offense report actually says. What is
Can we get it
actually-
under the Open Records Act, I wonder?
You know,
Probably
the
can.
only you could probably get it. You'd have to ask Dallas. I don't think that you can get it from parole through open records.
Right, but in Dallas County, maybe you could, because the case is over according to them,
Right.
as when he pled in '75. So
Right.
maybe we could ask for it under the Freedom of Information Act.
If they still have
If they
it.
still have it, because the problem is when they gave it to parole back in '75,
Mm-hmm.
then they could have destroyed it because they don't need it anymore.
Right, Dallas may have not have it. That's the
Right.
problem, and it's hard to
Because we
get
didn't
a
have
hold
computer
of it.
records back then.
Right.
So things were kept in those old, big old tapes and master tapes, and a lot of times
Right.
they weren't maintained. But like you said, I don't think we can get them from parole.
Yeah, I don't think you can get them from parole either.
Have you ever tried to get a police report from parole?
You can't. You have to get it from the county, from the DA's office, from the police. You know, we can try to get it from the Dallas Police Department if that was the agency, that took
Yes,
the
it was.
report.
Dallas, it was DPS. I mean, DPD, Dallas Police Department.
Yeah, we can try and get it from the Dallas Police Department to see what's actually there.
Okay.
But that would be more of a, trying to get the case reversed through the, judicial system, not
Right.
so much through
Right,
parole.
right.
Because I feel like their hands may be tied once it's actually a conviction. You
Yeah,
know?
Exactly.
right.
And
Once-
and they could get, that's a policy. If they've actually got a conviction, their hands are kind of tied,
Right.
unfortunately.
But then it's a policy decision because,
Right.
like as we know in '81, he didn't have to register as a sex offender.
Right.
We know that policies come and go. And one of the things we want to throw out there is what are good policies? Is this a good policy? I vote for no. I think it should be more individualized based on the person's conduct and some type of progress reports. Or if you're going to mandate everybody who's ever had a sexual case in their past, there has to be some criteria.
Exactly.
And there has to be some tapering off if there's been 37 years of no sexual conduct. And, did the girl tell the truth? I mean, because I bet another thing that frustrates me is whether she's dead or alive with heroin, you wouldn't know. But in '75, if she was on heroin, she has a criminal record too.
Yeah. More
Right.
like
You know what I'm saying? She's
Yeah.
going to have one too. So was she really a credible person?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that he, I understand the situation where he's in a jail cell, horrible conditions. He's terrified of getting, a life sentence. He's going to not be in a position of really thinking about, what are the consequences? Did I really do this, or should I just
And he can't
take
negotiate.
It?
I mean, when you're in jail,
Right,
you
can't
have no
negotiate.
you
Right.
have no negotiating power. The only negotiation he had was 6 years versus 25 to life if you go to trial. And the
Right.
fear of that and the detoxing from heroin, you can't think clearly.
Right,
When I have
exactly.
clients like that, when I did a lot of court appointments and I had clients like that, I just wouldn't let them plead. I mean, I
Okay.
was one of those lawyers that said, screw it. We're just going to go to trial and whatever happens, just be a man. You're man enough to be a dope fiend.
Yeah.
Be a man enough to take
Exactly.
25 to life. Because if
Exactly.
you didn't do it, I'm not pleading you guilty. You know that, Mary. You know that's
Yes,
what kind of
I know.
person
Right.
I
I know
am.
that's how you are, yes.
And
I'm just not going to let you. I am not going to have it on my conscience that I pled someone to a sex offense if they didn't do it. Even before they had to register, I wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Because, I mean, that's too grave of a deal to
of
have
course,
to
and see,
live.
little did I know that this would come back 37 years and haunt me like it did. I mean, because here's the deal. It creates such a abnormal situation for an individual under this sexual offender act to where everyone has a computer in their home. Now, you got 95% of the homes that has computers. All they have to do is type in your address, pull up, boom, there it is, you're a sex offender. Okay, now that's one stigma. The next stigma is you're walking around with this great big box and looking like a battery charger. And in the event of that, you got to go to sexual therapy class and sit up in class. And
Now, in that, do you have to admit you did something?
well, this
Or would they revoke you if you,
you know
don't
what,
admit it?
Ms. King, as we speak, this does the God truth. The opening statement of one of the therapists that I went to was this. When you first come to group, say we all in group. My name is Samuel Samaan Wesley. I'm a convicted sex offender. I have this, that, I committed the act of such and such. You know, openly admitting this, and
So
like
you have to do that every time?
every time.
So
But
what do you admit to if you
I
didn't do
don't.
it?
That's what I'm saying. I don't. When I was over at that particular
So all
place
you
now.
can admit to is, yes, I did go inside a woman's panties to get my heroin.
Exactly.
And so I'm a convicted sex offender. That's all you can say is just tell what happened.
Just that simple. Just that simple.
That's crazy.
You know, and like
That's crazy. Let's take a call. We have about 10 minutes. Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Caller, you're on.
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
I was listening at you all talking. I have a brother that was convicted back in the 70s. He did 21 years in prison, got out March a year ago. He had to get out with the box. They had him going to sex classes and going to therapy. I was wondering, if a person, I mean, it seemed like that was such a long time ago, and then for him to have to get out and go through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of speak on that and give me some information about that?
Well, you know, I'm not a parole lawyer, but what I want to do is put out all criminal-related issues. I'm an expert in the courtroom, but I have never gone to the parole board to represent someone. Mary Samaan does most of her business on parole, and so I asked her here to talk about that. Each case is case by case. It's on an individual basis, and because we're not specifically your brother's lawyer, we can't speak, so we would have to kind of speak in hypotheticals, but Mary can answer a hypothetical question.
Yeah, can you repeat the question again, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. My brother was convicted for rape back in the 70s.
Okay.
How much time did he get? Life, or I mean, because he should be off parole by now. What did he get?
Well, he went to prison on the case, got out, and went back again.
Okay.
How long was the original sentence?
He went out. He went back on another case, which was not a sex case. It was, I think, assault or something like that.
Answer the question, ma'am.
Years.
Okay. Well, how much was his original sexual sentence? Do you remember?
Probably about. He copped out for 7 years.
Okay. So he got 7 years on a sex case and 35 years on a non-sex case.
Yes, ma'am.
At the same time?
He did 21 years on it.
Well, he revoked his original parole on a non-sex case and got 35 years on that one.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what is the question?
The question is, I was trying to figure out now, he did this happened back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. What they did is went back and picked it up and put him to register for life as a sex offender. He have to tell where he lives, like the guy said, it's on the computer. It's just so many technicalities that they are wanting you to do. I wanted to know, at that time, such a long time ago, how could they just pick that up and give that to him?
Yeah, well, what we're trying to explain, we're exposing it's a policy. And policies come and go. So originally it was not the policy. We had a different governor, a different parole board who set the policies. And now it's the policy. You're experiencing it through your brother, being a loving sister. We're exposing it because the public doesn't know that. I didn't know it, and I'm a criminal lawyer because I don't do the back end. I don't do parole when people are getting out. I try to keep people from going. And if I do say myself, I do a pretty good job. I do a very good job. Would you say so, Mary?
Yes, I would say so.
So I don't usually deal with that. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I have clients that have gone to prison. Sometimes we need to go to prison because we're going to do more time if we don't. But if you say you didn't do it, we're going to fight to the end. So what I'm telling you is that I'm learning also about things that happen, and this is something that's not publicized. The governor and the parole board don't publicize what their policies are. So we're kind of like exposing it and talking to it about it, but the people who make the laws are the legislators. The people who vote need to know about this so we can start being conscientious voters. Instead of, as urban people, minority people, we always say, oh, who cares? Those people are going to do what they want to do. No, if you know what the issues are, then you can ask people about them when they're running. People in the governor's office, okay, this is what we're talking about. But that's who sets the policy, is the governor's office and the parole board.
Yeah, I would say the governor's office. I mean, the parole board, as I know it now, I feel like they're fair people and they try to do the right thing. That's the only experience that I've had with them.
But they're following the policy, and that's what's awful about Texas having a one-party system. You know, we've had Republican governors since '94, and although I'm not saying they're not, they're bad people. But what I'm saying is that when you have a one-party system, people get to do what they want to do. They don't have to focus on running and being fair. They can focus on making money and doing deals and things like that. I mean, any system can become corrupt accidentally just because there's no accountability and there's no balance of power. You know, you need to have some Democrats and some Republicans to balance the power so we can, you know, talk about these things. But I'm going to research this more. In August, I'm going to have Bill Hayburn and his partner come in, and they're parole lawyer experts out of Huntsville, and they're going to actually bring in a guest under this. And they've studied his case for the show so we can talk more about it. So keep watching the show. You're welcome to call my office and give me your email address, and I send out an email every week of who the guests are. And so if you want to make sure to watch that show. But they're going to come on with a person like Sam, and they're bringing from Huntsville for us to delve into this real deeply. So call me back, okay?
I will call you back because I would like to talk to you on another case, and I am trying to get a lawyer for that case.
Ma'am,
I'll
okay.
give you a call back.
Okay, but call, and I really want you to see Bill Hayburn and his partner talk about this sex offender law because they're the ones researching it. Thank you for calling, and keep watching every week. All right, we got 3 minutes, so I'm going to let Mary start off by saying your closing statements.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying I'm sorry about what happened to you. That sounds terrible, and I really think would be a really good idea to go back and see, you know, what the offense report was in that case. See if you can find that old DA file. See if there's any way to beat that case from back in 1975, because it sounds like you know, you didn't do a sex offense at all.
It wasn't no sex offense, and you know the thing.
Now remember, now we have 2 minutes, so let's not debate this anymore. This is our closing statement. She's closing to you. Mary Samaan is a criminal lawyer that focuses on parole and does a great job of it. I refer my people to her. You make your closing statements, please.
Okay, my closing statements is this. The thing of it is, I'm saying this to the youngsters and younger brothers and sisters that's coming up. Please, I repeat, please do not get an X on your back, because an X, not just a sexual offense, but any felony, a felonious offense, will shorten and hinder your success in life from now on. There's no end to this. And you can't it's some banks that won't even do business with ex-offenders. It's some apartments, homes, people, you just X'd out, and that's what that X means. You are X'd out. So please, those things that you're doing out there, reconsider that and look at the big picture and try and not get caught up in the system. Because if you get caught up in the system, you will continue to lose unless you are just one of the fortunate ones that are allowed to beat the system.
But one of the comments that you made to me when we were driving over is that, you know, the drugs run your life and you can't quit drugs until you're ready. So what do we do with young people who like crack and like dope? Because that feeds, you know, that's what feeds the crime. Half the time, the other half is being greedy and just thinking I can take something from somebody at gunpoint. I mean, what do we do?
First of all, you got to identify the problem. If you got a problem and you're using drugs, open up and admit that you have a problem. Get you some help. Get you some real professional help. There's sources and places that you can get some help from. And if you got a problem with drugs, you will continue to go in and out of the system until you say enough is enough, such as me.
Well, we have to wrap up now. Please watch us again next week, Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Hopefully we can have Samuel Wesley back on the show. We can talk more towards the kids. I'm going to try to develop a few more youthful programs this summer, since the kids are out of school and they're burglarizing houses and doing bad things in the neighborhood. We want to talk more about the real issues that affect our criminal justice system and use this as a learning opportunity for us to open up discussions, figure out how we can deal with the problems that we have in our Houston and Harris County community. Thank you again for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King, and I'll see you next Wednesday night from 6:30 to 7:30. Thank you so much.